What's going on, guys? It's Christian here with Cover 3 Media at you live for my very first 2023 fantasy football video. Now, we're Cover 3 Media. We have you covered the entire season. That includes the off season. Just like 2022, we're coming at you with the picks, the players, the draft picks. Every set lineup you need, start, sits, everything to help you win the championship. One day, one draft pick, one set lineup at a time, and it starts today with my 2023 rookie mock draft, first round 1.0. That's right, my top 12 players in this upcoming draft for fantasy football. Now, how are we going to go about this, you guys? Why am I not doing more than one round? There's more than one round in a rookie fantasy draft. Well, it's really simple, guys. It's hard to gauge without landing spots where these guys are going to go, but we can at least know one thing. Talent reigns true in the NFL, no matter where you're drafted or the place you go, to an extent, okay? When the top guys are drafted, they're going to be the top guys. They're going to get a chance because high draft capital is spent on them. That's why we're going after them. That's who we're going to talk about today, who you should be taking over the other in these top draft capital spots. All right, you guys, 2023, let's get into it. All right, getting into it with my number one overall player, my 1.01, first guy you should be drafting. Should be obvious since everyone's got the same thing. It is BIJAN Robinson, the clear-cut 1.01 for 2023. He does everything. He's going to be catching the ball out of the backfield. He's going to be a workhorse, 3-down back for a team. Hopefully he goes to the Dallas Cowboys and they get rid of Zeke and Tony Pollard. Don't need to re-sign them. Get rid of them and utilize him in their offense. Coming from Texas, it just makes a lot of sense. Great offensive line, historic running backs play for the Cowboys. But with that said, BIJAN has that talent. He has the highest ceiling out of everyone. And his floor, prohibiting, all right, he's going to be the best. There's not a lot to get into with him. We just know how great he is. Years of production, years of talent. Moving on to my 1.02. Now, in a Superflex Dynasty Fantasy Football League, you're taking quarterbacks. This might shock some people. My number one quarterback, CJ Stroud, a 6'3", super skilled, great arm, athletic, fits the mold of an NFL quarterback to a T in this modern era. He's going to be mobile. He knows how to win. He's been a Heisman candidate for years. And just watching him against Georgia, a team that genuinely has NFL stars in the making for their defense, blowing everyone else out, him being the only person to even stand a chance against them, one field goal away from the national championship, taken away from him. I see this look in his eye, this drive. He is going to be that guy. He's got the mentality. CJ Stroud is my number one quarterback in this upcoming draft, not Bryce Young. I know he beat him for the Heisman. I know Bryce Young shows a winner mentality as well, but we'll get into my hesitations with Bryce Young. Moving on to my 1.03. Pretty easy again, a running back here, Jahmyr Gibbs. All right, Alabama, we talk about the talent that comes out of there, running back-wise, wide receiver-wise, heck, even recently quarterback-wise for a reason, because they are Alabama. These players come in, he's going to be pass-catching ridiculous amounts right away. I see him being utilized right away, and for most of these players, all right, getting a pass-catching ability as a running back, off the bat, you're going to be scoring. I mean, look at James Conner. He doesn't even get 60 yards a game from scrimmage, but he gets six receptions, and he's utilized, and he's actually worth having on a roster. It doesn't make sense, but it kind of does. And you look at Jahmyr Gibbs, he's got a similar tool set of Alvin Kamara, and at the end of the day, you want to get the next Alvin Kamara on your team. He's been a top player for years and years going on. This is the worst year he's had, and yet he still was productive and worth being on a team. So, get Jahmyr Gibbs in this draft, guys. Moving on to my 1.04. It's my second QB, and it's Bryce Young. Now, why is he not my 1.01? He might be going number one in the draft. I wouldn't take him personally, and this is why. All right, I look at Russell Wilson. I look at Tua Tagovailoa as similar builds, similar skill sets, running around. They have great arms. They have solid accuracy out there. They have the will to win, but they're both pretty stocky. Bryce Young's got to put on a decent amount of weight still. And the hits he's going to be taking, realistically, on a Texans team or Indianapolis, if they're going to move up to get him, I mean, they might lose Quentin Nelson. You just don't know. Heck, Vegas, not the greatest offensive line in the world. The teams that he could possibly be playing for, the hits he's going to take, could bar his career. I mean, Tua could look like he was doing great this year, and now he's Mr. Concussion Protocol every other week. We have to be careful with that. And so my hesitations off the amount of hits he's going to take because of how good of a mobile quarterback he is. Now, with that said, he's the type of guy that's going to have to be capitalized early on as well in his career to be looked at before he gets a big contract, this or that. Like Kyler Murray. I mean, look at the Cardinals. They're terrible now, and Kyler Murray has a big contract, and he honestly doesn't show a lot of drive. That's the other thing I see with Bryce Young. Although he's a winner and I think he can keep his drive, it's dangerous. Moving on to my 1.06. All right. And it's weird for me that I think he's that good, and I think this is the most crucial position in fantasy football, and he's the 6th ranked guy in this draft. This is a great draft class, guys. And it's Jaxson Smith-Njigba, okay? Ohio State, he showed out. And the reason he's the highest, for me, is not necessarily, I don't believe he actually has the highest ceiling. People comparing him to Ja'Marr Chase, play style, not just because he sat out his junior year and had a great sophomore year, but actually play style as well. I don't see him being up here, like with Ja'Marr being athletically just so gifted. But with that said, he has a great floor. I see at minimum Keenan Allen out of him. And when you have an opportunity for someone like that, who's going to be consistent years to come, you have to be ready. Quite simply putting it, his route running, his skill, all right, his athleticism are very superb. And his floor is so high, with such a high ceiling, it just pushes him. It's just so likely he's going to be a stud. And if he gets drafted to the Bears somehow, the Bears maneuver, they trade down, they're able to get him at wide receiver, pairing him with Justin Fields. That would just be disgusting. Look at Ja'Marr, look at Joe Burrow. I know it's not the same exact situation, but these pairings from college, I mean, ETN and Trevor Lawrence look great together. I mean, it doesn't just have to be wide receiver, quarterback, but at the end of the day, it's just the chemistry that's built. You need that in the NFL. And with these young stars, that's a great thing to get a great start into their career and be one of those top valued guys. All right, moving on. My next ranked guy after this is going to be Jordan Addison. All right, and again with Jordan Addison, it really comes down to one thing, and he's my 1.06. I misspoke. Jaxson Smith-Njigba was number 5, so excuse me. Jordan Addison has been productive on multiple teams, on multiple NFL offenses, and it's going to be slid right in for great success. Again, maybe not the highest ceiling, high floor. He has succeeded in multiple places, and he really is just a stud athletically. I see him on the outside, see a little bit of Devontae Smith in him. I mean, he's won wide receiver of the year in college for a reason, okay? He's played with multiple great quarterbacks and great offenses. I understand that, but even in the big games, he still has shown through. He got some of the best corners in college football. We have to remember that, look at that production, and understand that although his ceiling might not be as high as the next person, wide receiver I talk about, it is at the end of the day super high, and his floor is just not the same. So be ready there. Now with my next spot here, talk about Quentin Johnston. Wide receiver 3 for me, because he has easily the highest ceiling, but I do have some concerns. Now, in some of the bigger games, obviously national championship, that's a one-off. That whole team did not play that great. Now, in the college football playoff, the game before, 7 receptions, 152 yards. Can't really complain from Quentin Johnston there. He's a fantastic wide receiver. Love him to death. It's just his ceiling floor is a little bit more volatile. Now, what I mean by volatility with that is, yes, he has great hands. Yes, he can get up and he can get the ball. But if he's not put in a situation with a good quarterback, he's not the type of guy where I see him getting multiple targets, multiple receptions in the slot, between the numbers, finding different ways to get in the ball. I think he's similar to DeAndre Hopkins, where he's got to go up and get it. And although he will make a quarterback better with a greater pass radius, at the end of the day, if he's put on a bad team with a quarterback that's just not there, he's not going to be able to get the ball. If he's put on a bad offense, he's not going to be able to get the ball. And if he's getting double teamed every play because he's the only offensive weapon, it just scares me. He has to fall into the right situation for me to then move him from spot 3 to spot 1. Now, he falls into the right situation, he could easily make that jump because that potential will become a little bit more solidified as higher, and his floor will then raise. So with that said, as of right now, talent and the way that the NFL offenses kind of work and the way I see him fitting into them, it just scares me a little bit. Moving on, 1.08 is going to be my third quarterback, Will Levis. Now, a lot of people are very hesitant to take him. Now, at the end of the day, technically SEC quarterback. technically. Now, is he playing the top competition? I'm hesitant to say yes or no completely in saying that he performed super great against them, but his accuracy is there. I see the physicals with the size. All right, I see very similar to Justin Herbert, where he was playing kind of top competition, but not the best, not the worst. And he had great physicals, but half the media's in on him, half the media's out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Not a lot of people really know enough about him. Falls in the right situation, right offensive coordinator, he could be fantastic. He has a decent amount of weapons around him. He might turn someone who we might not think is as good into a great weapon. I mean, there's multiple landing spots for him. What if he ends up being a Vegas Raider, for goodness sakes? Devontae Adams? Yeah, Will Levis is going to look good, really good his rookie year. And in a Superflex league, you need a good quarterback that's going to put up points. Do I think he's the next greatest thing in the world? No. But I do see him as someone that could be putting up points for the future. Top 15, 20 quarterback, maybe even in 23, if he does get that starting nod right away in a good offense. So it is a possibility with these middle-tier teams changing coaches, changing offenses, and changing quarterbacks, needing to slide in for that last piece. So just be careful, Will Levis. Don't just count him out completely because you haven't seen him as much. Watch out for him. Now my RB3, Zach Evans from Ole Miss. Playing the SEC, I got to give him the edge to my next running back, my RB4. But the reason why is also he hits gaps and he explodes through. His elusiveness left, right, it's just everything is there for him to be a bell cow back. Now, is he a spectacular pass catcher? I don't think we saw enough volume to necessarily say that, but he could easily develop into it. Look at Josh Jacobs. People said he couldn't pass catch out of college. Now he's one of the best in the league. We have to be ready for these guys that just have athletic talent to take over and show why they are the best. Talent reigns true in the NFL, and at the end of the day, this guy is talented. Moving on to the next guy is Sean Tucker. The reason why, it's the same situation why he's ranked in my first top 12 as Zach Evans. Similar, great vision out of Sean Tucker, some of the best in the draft. Now, playing at Syracuse. Little less competition, a little harder for me to say he's got all these explosiveness because the value of the people he's playing against is not as good, so the eye test can be deceiving with Sean Tucker. And so, although I've only seen that, I haven't seen his 40 times, I haven't seen his combine, just a couple things I'd like to see, and I'd also like to hear a couple of coaches' comments before I say I want to make the jump over Zach Evans in that situation. Moving on to my next wide receiver here, my wide receiver 4, and that's Josh Downs. Now, he was playing with Drake May. He was a stud. I'm not going to lie to you. I think he's a stud. He's got a lot of skill. But playing in the ACC, whatever, I don't really care. Josh Downs is one of those guys that just looks sneaky. Like, he's not being talked about as the top guy, so he's just going to fall through the cracks. And you know who else did that similarly in the recent years? Amon-Ra St. Brown. Even Justin Jefferson, for goodness sakes. We have to be ready for some of these guys. He's got that potential. Now, is floor a little bit lower? Yeah, sure. Now, is his floor a little bit lower? Sure. But with that said, all right, Josh Downs is one of these guys that, again, is going to get out. He's going to get receptions, going to get targets if he's put on the right team. Team matters, but talent means more, and he's more talented than the other wide receivers below on this list. Moving on to my wide receiver 5. Now, this might surprise a lot of people. I'm putting him above even Kayshon Boutte. And I will go back and forth on this because I love LSU wide receivers. I just really do. But something about this SMU wide receiver, Rashee Rice, is just grabbing hold of me. Just the way he plays, ferocity, the way he gets out in the open field, catches the ball, can catch in traffic. I mean, it's just special. And every once in a while, we have a random wide receiver from a random school come in and is actually just elite. And I just see that in Rashee Rice. I really do. And we have to be careful, okay? Now, we're going to see some guys probably get to a better landing spot than him. But just because they're in a better landing spot, this talent reigns true, like we always say. Quarterbacks love great targets. And there might be a wide receiver, too, who might be fringe old in the NFL, and he might beat him out. You know, I look at it, second round pick probably. I could see him even going to a few of these teams that a lot of people don't think, oh, they're going to take a wide receiver because they're not thinking first round. All right, but Buffalo, I could see him taking a wide receiver eventually. They need a slot. Now, Rashee necessarily isn't the number one guy for that. If I'm them, I'm going to get Jaxson Smith-Njigba. But even with that, Bengals, great example. Great example. T. Higgins, they might not be able to pay him. They're going to need a wide receiver. They need that 1-2 punch. Rashee Rice might be able to be the guy to fill that role. Maybe not to the full T that T. Higgins did, but to an extent enough for them to continue to be good, resign their defensive line, get some help on the O-line, although they were just unhealthy this year. And at the same time, they're going to have to sign Joe Burrow. They're going to have to sign Ja'Marr Chase, and they're planning for that. I don't know if they're able to keep T. Higgins. They might not. We'll know in the coming weeks. There you go. There's my top 12. Obviously, my honorable mentions, Kayshawn, Tank Bigsby. Charbonnet, we'll get into him, okay? We will. Anthony Richardson, we'll get into him. I'm high on him. Maybe not first round high in Superflex. It really depends on your personal situation. We'll get into all that here at Cover 3 Media with our first video of the season with all three of us in it. There you go. There you have it. My 2023 mock draft. If you're not already subscribing and liking this video, please do so. We love your support. We need you guys. We got you for the entire season, all right? Cover 3 Media. We got you all year to help you win the championship. One step, one win, and one transaction, draft pick, and everything in between combined. Let's go. Let's get into it, and let's win.